Ladányi László, akiről majd Salád Gergely professzor fog bővebben beszélni, ahogy előadónkról, Rothlin atyáról is hallunk majd bővebben. Csak annyit hadd említsek, hogy mivel nemzetközileg nagyon ismert, és ugyanakkor Magyarországon kevéssé ismert ez a bizonyos Ladányi László, aki nagyon nagyot alkotott, azért van ez az egész sorozat, hogy valahogy a helyére tudjuk tenni, helyezzük el őt a térképen, a agyunk térképén, szívünk térképén. Akkor én nem is húzom az időt, hanem átadom a szót Salád Gergelynek.
Jó estét kívánok! Jaj, de jó, hogy lehet magyarul beszélni, én angolul írtam meg mindenemet, de inkább magyarul fejből is el tudom mondani. Szeretettel köszöntöm Önöket, a EST társ szervezője, a Pázmány Péter Katolikus Egyetem Modern Kelet-Ázsia Kutatócsoportja nevében. Ugye Ladányi Lectures a sorozatnak a címe, aminek ez az indító előadása, és ez Ladányi Lászlóra utal, aki egy magyar jezsuita volt, 1914-ben született Diósgyőrben, eredetileg hegedű művésznek készült, a Zeneakadémiát végzett, és élete végéig professzionálisan hegedült, ahogy egyébként a mai előadónk megzongorázik szintén professzionálisan, de együtt nem játszottak, megkérdeztem itt a beszélgetés előtt. 1936-ban aztán miután éppen a Pázmány Péter Tudományegyetemen, tehát a mi egyetemünkön jogi diplomát is szerzett, inkább belépett a jezsuita rendben, és még ebben az évben Kínába helyezték. Ekkor Kínában volt a magyar jezsuitáknak egy missziója, ahol Pekingben, illetve Sánkhájban élt. 1949-ben a kommunista hatalom átvétel után elkergették az összes külföldi hittérítőt, így a magyar jezsuitákat is Kínából. Ugye haza se jöhettek, úgyhogy Ladányi László Hongkongba költözött, és ott is élt egész életében, egészen 1990-es haláláig. És itt alapította meg 1953-ban azt a hírlevelét, ami China News Analysis néven majdnem 30 éven keresztül 1986-ig az ő szerkesztésével jelent meg. Ez egy heti hírlevél volt angol nyelven, ami kizárólag a Kínában megjelent hivatalos kínai nyelvű források, dokumentumok alapján elemezte és mutatta be a külvilágnak, hogy mi folyik Kínában. Ez nyilván az internet korában ez nem hangzik túlságosan korszerűnek, de 1953-ban, amikor senki nem tudott semmit arról, hogy mi folyik a frissen megalakult Kínai Népköztársaságban, ez egy világszenzáció volt, hogy van valaki Hongkongban, aki rendszeresen napi szinten olvassa a kínai nyelvű sajtót, pár dokumentumokat, egyebeket, és egy ilyen mit kell tudni az elmúlt hét eseményeiről Kínában, mit jelenthet. Ez ilyen jellegű kompendiumokat készített hétről hétre, majdnem 30 éven keresztül. Tulajdonképpen, aki ebben az időszakban, tehát 50, 60, 70-es és meg a 80-as évek elején is Kínával foglalkozott nyugaton, ő ezt a CNA rövidítésű hírlevelet használta elsődleges forrásként, és ebből, vagy emiatt világszerte egy rendkívül híres, ismert ember volt. Nem csak a Kína kutató, Kína megfigyelők körében, hanem általában az újságírók is, hogyha Kínáról írtak, akkor rá hivatkoztak, kulturális forradalom, nagyugrás, egyebek idején. Magyarországon viszont tabunak számított Ladányi emlegetése, hiszen ugye jezsuita volt, nagyon-nagyon keményen antikommunista volt, tehát nem nagyon rejtette véka alá, hogy nem igen tetszik neki az, ami a Kínai Népköztársaságban folyik, és hát elég csúnya dolgokat is írt néha a szocialista blokk egyik nagyhatalmáról, úgyhogy Magyarországon gyakorlatilag az ő neve nem jelenhetett, meg el se jutottak az ő hírlevelei Magyarországra, de hogyha eljutottak volna, akkor se lehetett volna hivatkozni rájuk. És ugye 90 után már nem volt aktív, és ezért később sem vált igazán ismerté az ő neve. 2 könyve jelent meg angolul, egyik egyfajta párttörténet, a másik pedig egy kínai jogtörténet, vagy pontosabban inkább a kínai jogszemléletnek bemutatása, sajnos egyik sem jelent meg magyarul. Nyugaton tehát Ladányi sokkal ismertebb volt, és a mai napig is sokkal ismertebb, mint Magyarországon. És azt hiszem a sorozatnak, amit itt Szabolcs atya kezdeményezett a Párbeszéd Házában, az egyik célja ennek a helyzetnek a megváltoztatása. Az utolsó számában a China News Analysis-nak Ladányi egyfajta 10 parancsolatot fogalmazott meg a Kína kutatók számára. Ebből idéznék 3, nem akarom mind a 10-et felolvasni, mindegyik nagyon tanulságos, és mindegyik mai napig is aktuális, de 3 hagy idézek. Tekints Kínára a kínai szemüvegen keresztül. Hogyha külföldi szemüvegen keresztül nézel Kínára, akkor úgy értelmezed Kínát, ahogy az a saját problémáidból fakad. Tehát a saját problémáidat, a saját országod problémáidat próbálod értelmezni Kínán keresztül, ami nyilván félreértéshez vezet. Őrizd meg a józan eszedet, bár a kínaiaknak vannak kínai sajátosságai, ők is emberi lények, és ezért emberi lényekre jellemző normális reakciókat adnak. Ez is egy olyan dolog, amiről néha elfeledkezünk. És végül talán a legfontosabb, a 8. Ne hidd, hogy ismered az összes választ. Kína sokkal több kérdést vet fel, mint amennyi választ ad. Most mi viszont ma reméljük, hogy azért kapunk néhány választ, hiszen a mai előadónk szintén egy jezsuita, Stephan Rothlin, aki a kínai biznisz etikának, akármi is legyen az talán ki fog derülni, a legismertebb nemzetközi szakértője, számos könyve jelent meg, rengeteg helyen tanít, most nem fogom az összeset felolvasni. Zürichben, Svájcban született, 1991-ben doktorált az Innsbrucki Egyetemen, Ausztriában. 1998-ban Pekingbe költözött, ahol a legnevesebb pekingi egyetemeken, a Népi Egyetemen, a Pétán, tehát a Peking Egyetemen, sőt még a központi pártfőiskolán is tartott kurzusokat. Aztán itt élt több mint másfél évtizeden keresztül. 2013-ban szintén Pekingben megalapította a Rothlin International Management Consulting tanácsadó céget. 2015-től pedig a Macau Ricci, tehát a Institute-nak az igazgatója. Ez a kínai nyelvterületen a legnagyobb presztízsel rendelkező Jezsuita Kína kutatóközpont, amelyet ugye Macau Ricciről neveztek el. Úgyhogy én át is adnám a szót Stephan Rothlinnak. Floor is yours.
So, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's really a great honor and pleasure to be here, and I would first of all very much like to thank our hosts, House of Dialogue, Father Scheigo, for this special opportunity to share a few insights with you. And it is the second time for me in Hungary. The first time was extremely difficult. It was to let you know how old I am. In 1975, at the Ferenc Liszt Szene Akademia, I never in my life sweated so much, as my rivals were Kocsis, Renki, and Schiff. So those all now were proud that became the top pianists. So I feel so glad to come back. And my first mission, of course, is to share the genius of Father Ladányi, who is not so known, I think, in Hungary. It happens also to other missionaries who are very famous in China and dearly remembered. And Jesuits, sometimes people overestimate us. We are not so intelligent, but for sure, Father Ladányi was a true genius who had a unique grasp of Chinese and could really closely analyze what was going on. So I founded in Switzerland an association, Ladányi, to challenge also my colleagues and friends to better study also the recent history of China. What I'm tempted to do in a few minutes is now to share with you my main research on international business ethics. I'm in China since 20 years, and especially, of course, related to the One Belt, One Road initiative. Hungary signed first among the European states. I do think that some insights into international business ethics with a focus on China are crucial. So here also insight from a wisdom tradition. And in China, I always have to consider different wisdom traditions, not only Christianity, which attracts maybe most people, but also Buddhist, Taoist, and Confucian wisdom tradition. He that is faithful in that what is least is faithful also in that which is greater. And he that is unjust in that which is little is unjust also in that which is greater. This is an aspect in China which is highly valued. If you prove yourself reliable, it's not a culture of boasting, like maybe New York, chutzpah. You are low-key and want to promise, to honor your promises. And I thought often ethics is conceived as a straitjacket and ultimately then rejected. And I thought in China it's good to have the concept of play as a guiding light on what is ethics all about. It's a game we want to enjoy. As we listen to beautiful music, let us share what is most important also in business. So the surprise was when I first published the book in 2004, Becoming a Top-Notch Player, that the censorship in China did not censor any part of this book. I just used the examples of my MBA students in order to highlight some key aspects of business ethics. And so also the aspect sportsmanship in business transcends times and culture. You find it in Hellenistic Greece, in Confucian China, and when you go around in China, you will for sure meet people playing on the road. And of course, where I'm also partly, Macau is the kingdom of heaven for some Chinese, where you can gamble. So relationship also between philosophical concept of game and strategy. This may be also something different to Europe. In China, everything is strategy. What is my next move? Also, of course, to get my business done. And of course, a main point is, and also a challenge for each one of us, is the question, do we just talk about profit? Forget about the rest. So the latest scandal you may have heard is about a firm in Germany which for years sold cancer-generating medicine. Okay, if we talk about profit, well, what is the death of a couple of people? So, but that's also, I found the challenge with business students, even those who are kind of willing to listen, is ultimately just profit, the ultimate driver. So, therefore, the question is, what truly inspires us for best practices? One thing obviously is, and also very important, law. So that the law clearly indicates that you are punished if you do not follow the law. I will also kind of made it clear with, for instance, sexual harassment. People very early said, oh, this is a Western concept. So in 2001 already, I had serious discussions with female students about what is now, I think, everybody heard about the Me Too movement. Already 17 years ago, it was very clear to my female students how much they felt violated in their dignity if their boss abused his power. So therefore, what really inspires us is ultimately the good example. So the term in Chinese is the 君子. And I think that's true everywhere. If you have a leader, a boss, really walking the talk, that's really what inspires you to kind of maybe change also your behavior. I shared just example, and by the way, that's also one of my main research is well-researched case studies. So, especially with dealing with business students, if you cannot constantly throw in case studies, they goes away. And so as an example of a 君子, I shared Andrew Saw is the founder of the Asian Confederation of Credit Unions, and also a dear friend with whom I had the privilege to work with, I think, who embodies this concept of a 君子. He was both successful as a legislator at the LegCo in Hong Kong, but also as a businessman. And in China, we talk a lot about the Ru Shang, the Confucian entrepreneur. Of course, you have to look for successful entrepreneurs. They are highly successful. That's, for instance, also Ma Yun, Jack Ma. But yet, and I think sincerely, they want to stick to, for instance, refusing bribes. So I think that's truly inspiring for us. And it's also actually the main push in the book. Now in the second edition, I owe it a lot to my team, because in the second edition, you can, by the way, for free download at globethics.net that we have now the real world case studies. That's really all to the work of my team and also Dennis McCann, with whom I work since more than 10 years. So business ethics and the sciences is crucial because actually when we talk about Belt and Road initiatives, who were the first on the Silk Road? Those were actually the missionaries, and the Chinese have a very warm memory of these missionaries because besides sharing their faith, they shared social innovation, mathematics, cartography. And today, I think the issue is not anymore mathematics, but economics. How can we make the economic development more sustainable? And now one case study, and actually a string of case studies, is around the milk powder. I found it very sad to realize that the Chinese, due to this string of product scandals, no contaminated milk, they have a deep distrust to their own products. So for instance, a friend had his grandson, and I asked him, what should I give you as a gift? He said, give me milk powder from abroad, see, which indicates this is a whole erosion of trust in their own products, and also indicates how kind of urgent it is to look at these business ethics scandals. A key issue is that I do think to overcome some prejudices about the whole function of business ethics. Some people think, well, business ethics sounds nice, but is contrary to actually business success. I think if we look at the question how you become successful in China, you have also to look how often this cooperation with Chinese do not work. So just one of the case studies is about Pepsi Cola in China, where I analyze how also this pattern is repeated all over again. I have also another case study I have written with Professor Barbara Krug about the breakdown between Danone and Wahaha. You could summarize it like this. You have a short honeymoon followed by a very long, painful divorce. And the reason behind is that, of course, each party has his share of kind of guilt, but it's, I think, often also the Western partner underestimates how complex it is to understand these business transactions, how complex it is really to earn the trust of the Chinese. Another issue is cutthroat competition. Those may be familiar with China, arriving at airport, you may have seen huge advertising about mengniu. So dairy products, milk, yogurt is a huge growing market. And here you have this interesting example that you have two competitors since more than 50 years. Mengniu fights against Yili. And interesting, these two firms made commitments to let the employees study business ethics and actually do an oath on business ethics. You have also heard in Harvard Business School, you have the oath on business ethics. But sadly, you had this kind of very dirty scandal where actually Mengniu hired a PR firm in order to make false claims. It was admitted that it was true. They made, in order to make false claims that by eating products from Yili, you would get sexual malfunctions. So really one of the quite dirtiest tricks. And again, if we talk just about market share, maybe that's what you have to do. Do not do others what you do not want them to do. So that's of course so in ethics, you want to really see the subtle differences between the different wisdom traditions, but also what actually is a universal value. See, I think this golden rule, I would claim, you find in different wisdom traditions. Another issue is that the consumer movement has become very strong, especially, I would say, in Macau and Hong Kong. And I had the privilege to work with the president of the consumer movement in Macau. So, similar to the media, we call the new media, the Xinmei, who criticizes the firms which violate the ethics. So you have a consumer movement now with the new media really criticizing also those perpetrators. Another issue I think you are maybe familiar is with the scandals in the toys family, Mattel, and according to a very critical colleague of mine, Prakash Sethi, Mattel has gone through a whole process to overcome this kind of situation of sweatshops in the Guangdong province in southern China. A whole other key term is fiduciary responsibility in a culture of predatory lending. Even I mentioned this kind of credit unions, even in, if you have very nice ideas about self-empowerment, you find rampant also violation of this fiduciary responsibility. And I think it's obvious that this idealization of profit maximization can create a culture of moral indifference. You are familiar maybe with a major scandal now in the church about sexual abuse, where you see also the development of ethics. Maybe not only 20, 30 years ago, the reputation of an institution was priority. While now, this whole had a shift that when we realize that the dignity of an individual has been violated, that this has absolute priority. And it is a very painful moment to wake up for the church, but that's, I think you see also the progress of how ethical sentiments have taken precedence over just reputation. So when we talk about what are common characteristics, then we have to be a bit flexible. For instance, from a Western point of view, we insist a lot on the term human rights. Now, from a Chinese side, their way to look at what we put on the human rights is actually dignity. So even from the parties, the Communist parties' point of view, they think when Westerners talk about human rights, it's that what they, in the Confucian culture, put under dignity. So, may I make a little test, just in order to test you about your ethical awareness, if the organizers may allow, okay? What is often overlooked is the sweatshop conditions, not only in China, in Asian countries. Now, if you have a t-shirt on one side, you know for sure has been produced under fair conditions, and you have to pay, may I put it in dollar terms, you have to pay $40 US. Okay. On the other hand, you know for sure that a t-shirt is produced under sweatshop conditions and you can get it for $4 US, just a tenth. May I take the liberty to ask you, who among you, again, you see these two t-shirts looking both nice, the sweatshop t-shirt as well as the fair trade t-shirt. May I ask, who would be, is the question clear? Who among you would pay $40 under, of course, the conditions you know for sure that this t-shirt is truly produced under fair conditions? Would you mind to raise your hand? Okay, so thank you. That's usually what I get, and I appreciate your sincerity. People still would, in the majority, maybe also test, just to be sure that we get. So we have the other people. You would still see its attempt. So more reasonable for you, buy this $4, but you know it has been produced in Bangladesh. May I ask, so who would pay $4 for the t-shirt? Okay, usually, thank you. Usually that's what I get, and I appreciate your sincerity. I had only one group in all these years of very highly paid doctors who did not confirm this pattern. But you see, and it's also something what I want to convey, and actually my surprise, why the censors did not censor me 10 years ago. Because I'm wondering who among you is aware what is the background of the new mobile phones. if you're aware what actually the Chinese are, the accidents in these factories, the subhuman conditions, and my surprise why the censors did not cut me when, according to the official figures, 10 years ago we had 7,000 miners dying in the mines. And in my opinion, if, for instance, a terrorist storms and kills us all, it's not a pleasant situation, but after a few seconds we are gone. I found this painful death of a miner. First, his lung is kind of gone, and then maybe after a couple of months he dies. I found that much more painful than a spectacular death by a terrorist attack. And here, this also sexual harassment is, of course, a bit a relief also for me. Nobody now can deny about the impact of the Me Too movement. In China, you have in Chinese, 也是 movement is something, of course, beautiful actresses launched, and I think we are all clear in all lower kind of streams of the society, the problems are certainly as serious as in the glamorous world of Hollywood. So I do think that there has been some significant shift. Also in China you have the legal basis. So in 2006, also the Chinese government passed legislation against sexual harassment. Of course, also my example was Dominic Strauss-Kahn was about to be elected or had a fair chance to be elected as French president, who kind of killed his career. Whistleblowing is also a tricky issue. So if you are sure that your boss is cheating, or if something very serious is going on, say in your department, well, nowhere you can attack your boss. That's simply not possible. So what are you doing? So I think when we teach business ethics, we have to be clear how whistleblowing works. And for me, a main issue, also what I discussed a lot with economists in Zurich I was working with, is that somebody in the board of directors is earmarked, you can call him as ombudsman or ombudswoman, in order to investigate into a case. So you have whistleblowers everywhere in the world. I just mentioned one in Japan, where you had whistleblower drawing the attention to the abuse of firms who sold old meat. Now, towards a financial reform, I think that the financial crisis was a crucial moment to draw the attention about the issue of ethics for finance. And when I spell out what is business ethics all about, is the first thing is, well, among students actually, I admit, first is we refuse to cheat. My experience is that is a rampant cheating also in academic circles. So one of the basic lines is we have to agree against cheating. But then right after this consensus, hopefully, it's also that you urge for transparency, see, and also make it very clear. So I want also to mention that my experience is that I shifted more and more to online teaching. So since 3 years, I developed with my Chinese partners online courses and make ethics very concrete. So first, the first and the most successful course was how to make a business plan. So you have to argue that actually through financial transparency, your edge is actually enhanced and not at all diminished. Then you have also splendid examples of firms which are highly successful but have made a commitment in midst of an absolute corrupt context. So I like to refer to Infosys. I think you are familiar with this IT firm in southern India, and they made really a commitment to corporate social responsibility. Also very concretely to rehabilitate women who have been involved in human trafficking. And it is also interesting to note that since 4 years there is a new law, the so-called company law in India, so that the firms are required to donate 2% out of their profit to what they call corporate social responsibility, so different forms of poverty alleviation. I mentioned also this example because now the attention of the media in India seems to be restricted just to the rapes. So, of course, this is an issue, but I think all other aspects and also attempts, convincing attempts to implement business ethics are then overlooked. A whole issue is also intellectual property rights, where I just want to stress the true progress in China in this part, starting from Hong Kong. Hong Kong was the first place considered also in China, who strictly implemented intellectual property rights. Now, here is also a key question I ask my students. Do you think that corruption can be avoided in the Philippines or in China? And at the end I say, don't please myself, flatter me. Just let me know what you think. And I found it's better if, like for instance, a very brilliant student from the Philippines admitted, look, I do think corruption is unavoidable right now in the Philippines. So it's better than you have people just flattering you, because then actually also when I was reading the paper of this brilliant student, my reaction was, of course, also, now I know how such a wonderful country is still in the midst of such a mess, if even those who may make a difference think this way. And I think what you also have to consider, you need networks which support you in a certain option. I think we have to consider the strong force of some systems, or that a certain environment may really push you and you cannot do but most corrupt and dirty things. So, in order also to make a business case, I like to share a case study. Also, usually it's not me as a Swiss coming to pinpoint to the Chinese, a dirty kind of case of a Swiss firm which is very highly successful in China, but in Japan is since 11 years out of business. So Schindler was among the first to do a joint venture in China. But why did they get completely out of business since 11 years was, in 11 years ago, a boy entered a lift who then started to move, and he got so caught up in the movement that he died. Okay. Then Schindler was seen to be so slow in their reaction, and the Japanese public felt so unacceptable that this Swiss firm took so long to apologize and also kind of denied their legal responsibility. So, therefore, Schindler completely kind of ignored how important it is in the Japanese culture to stand up as soon as possible to pay the affected family and to make a very strong statement of apology with bowing to the people. If you don't ignore that, well, you are out of business. And it's a bit also the way why I share these insights of Ladányi. It's the same in China. When you don't have this cultural responsibility, I think you will never be successful in business. Another, I think, for me, very revealing case study is the phone hacking case study in the UK. I think you're all familiar with that. These moral abuses of information gathering, this Murdoch media group engaging in phone hacking, was seen also by the public in the UK as totally unacceptable. So in order to get more information, to get a good story, so News of the World was hacking into the phone of the family dollar, and as a consequence then, very successful Murdoch product collapsed. Another key issue of my research is on philanthropy. I must admit that most of people who do support me come from European sources. There was a case also that a Chinese, highly successful Chinese entrepreneur supported me, but most come from Europe. And it is a fact that really the Chinese philanthropic culture has been destroyed. Now, a key point of my research is how this culture of philanthropy can be revived. And the message is not you have to copy Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. I very much, I think, appreciate and admire this philanthropic commitment of both Warren Buffett and Bill Gates in China. And they challenged the Chinese billionaires to do the same. But I think there is a specific Chinese way also to share. And I really hope also that we can make headway in this philanthropy, also linked to this initiative where Hungary is involved in Belt and Road. We have this dramatic widening between the rich and the poor, and my hope is also that this Belt and Road is not just about technological, economic exchange, but also actually a challenge that some people who are highly successful may share their resources. So I conclude with the first case study. If people say, well, look, everything is profit, forget about the rest, I say, look out in Beijing, a city I'm very much like. Why do we have the smog? It's not, there is a lack of laws. The environmental laws are state of the art since 20 years, to my knowledge. But if we understand how corruption works, that through bribes, literally, then these laws kind of turn into smog. And we have now to question also this superficial understanding of economic development. Say, if instead of double digital growth 15 years ago, we would have kind of opted for maybe 3-4% less, but taking into account the whole consequence for the environment, this would have a tremendous impact. So it was a slow awakening into this environment responsibility in China. But again, I think that it is crucial how China will be or will be not a driver as protecting the environment. So here is what I ultimately share, and I found very much in tune with Father Laszlo Ladányi, who was deeply inspired by Catholic social teaching, solidarity, subsidiarity, not as abstract ideas, but as a special challenge, not only for the Christians, who are a minority in China, but as actually a new paradigm for business. So that's a long-term project I wanted to share, and so thank you very much for your attention. Köszönöm szépen.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting lecture. Now we have a Q&A session until you prepare your questions. I have one. Are you optimistic about the effect of your work? I mean, anybody who has done business in China knows that many of the Chinese companies are not famous for being very ethical in their deeds. Do you think that you can have any effect on this overall situation in China?
You see, everything is ambiguous in China. On one side, it seems to be totally hopeless. So that's on one side. So that's we have to be frank. And also my students, I can very guess, maybe their ideal is Donald Trump. No, I know very well. On the other hand, I feel I have students, they are really angry about the corruption. They really want to change. So I really think I'm not optimistic and not pessimistic. As I hope a fair enough teacher, as the French say, it's pour le meilleur et pour le pire. It can be even worsen very dramatically, or they may be a progress. But I cannot buy into a superficial optimism.
I see. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My question would be that, can you tell us a little about the civil economy in China, the civil society? So, you know, where business ends and where the state doesn't start yet. And also about the role of academia. Do you see cooperation between civil societies and the academia? Thank you.
I think the chance, if you live in China, is that you see the growth of civil society. So I think one major event was, for instance, the earthquake 10 years ago, where you had, where more than 70,000 people died in the Sichuan earthquake, and also critical media hailed this as a kind of one of the beginnings of the civil society, because people were not looking just for the state and the government to help, but there were many groups, grassroots groups, who stepped into the picture. Then you have what I mentioned with the new media, that even under a strict control, you have people eager to read critical newspapers who are out there to criticize if there is an abuse. And then, of course, again, you cannot say generalize, but I would claim that in the academia, you have an atmosphere where you can talk quite openly. And I think this is very, very important. And I truly admire these colleagues who, under not so ideal conditions, if I compare with Europe, really forge ahead and kind of look forward. Or like, for instance, with business ethics, my pragmatic maybe answer to the previous question is that it seems to be it's more taken seriously in China than in Europe, because you're constantly faced with these questions. So just to ignore, no Vogelstrauß, just to ignore the questions does not work. So my understanding is you have a slow growing of civil society in China.
Any more questions?
Kérdezni esetleg magyarul is, és akkor, ha az úgy könnyebb, hát ha szóra bír egyeseket, vagy...
Köszönöm. My name is David Eres from the András University, Budapest. My question would be, I have just sent a picture that we are here today and what we are listening to a friend living and making business in China, and then she just wrote back, yeah, the correct title of the course would be The Lack of Business Ethics in China. And my question would be about the spillover effect. Like we have the Belt and Road Initiative coming to Europe, and the European and the Chinese dimension. Will the Chinese ethics have a stronger spillover effect on the European ethics or business ethics, or the other way around? So we have an educative function and role towards China in this question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I see it as a mutual learning process. And I never say we don't have to be naive. See, the problems are massive. And my approach is all these philosophical approaches, both Chinese and Western, I'm sorry to say, are ultimately meaningless if it's not really related to very concrete problems and also failures. So therefore, the whole issue of case studies are so important, because if you start with general kind of principles, that will never convince people. But you can say, here is, for instance, a certain network, here is a certain firm, which, despite all the odds, opts, then I think these philosophical insights become a meaning. But of course, the other issue is also, there is an ignorance, in my opinion, in the Western academia about Asian philosophies. So I say also Asian philosophies. I don't just sell Confucius, for instance. I went several times to India, 9 times to India. There is, for instance, also, I found a very inspiring treaty called Tirukkural, Southern Indian treaty, which is interesting that you say you can enjoy your life, so appealing to people, enjoy your life, yet stick to your values. But this all is only convincing if it is really made concrete, looking at concrete case studies, and also with all these problems we touch, for instance, what is an acceptable gift? These also should always be made very concrete. So what is the price tag which is acceptable? For instance, I don't think zero tolerance makes sense in China. So for instance, we don't accept any gifts that are found total also offense to Asian culture. You have to give gifts, but for instance, you have to be precise what is an acceptable gift or not.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Sure.
Nagyon komolyan veszi a kérdéseket.
It's a methodological one. So you work with sensitive stuff. How do you enter the field? How do you, gather information? How do you build your case studies?
You see, you have always to be in a certain Sherlock Holmes attitude. See, so that's true. It's what I find very thrilling. If you make a research, I tell you, the classical research is very frustrating. For instance, I made a research with 4 Chinese researchers how Global Compact is implemented. Very frustrating, because most people who actually signed this bloody Global Compact are not willing to respond to your questions. So it's, you seem very, very frustrating. So you have to seize every opportunity to get to the information. And that, for instance, includes, sometimes I have the impression that some taxi drivers are more sharp on certain issues than, university professors. See, so, and then there are, as I say, some newspapers, for instance, even government-related magazine called China Newsweek, where you have interesting stories ignored outside China, or Southern Weekly, and then it's always the wisdom of other journalists. See, it makes really a difference if you're on the spot 30 years, going on the field. These people sometimes really know more. Like, for instance, for the Ladányi, it's like a Bible, or some journalists who like the Talmud, they were reading Father Ladányi as a reference. So even if you don't like it, you just have to listen to these colleagues and friends constantly. Because usually in China, for the same question, you get completely different diverging answers. And one thing also, of course, I want to make a pitch, a sales pitch, is that seize the chance to learn Mandarin, if you can. Because this makes a whole difference also in this research for truth, and the Chinese immensely appreciate that if you are able to really share your views with them. Because then you indicate you truly appreciate the culture, and rightly they say, if your Chinese is not good, how can this fellow tell us something about China? Because his Chinese is so bad. See, so that's a bit what I also want to share with you. You're still young and bright, so have this chance to do that.
I think we have a lot of students of Chinese here.
Mm-hmm.
And what about your Chinese colleagues? Don't they have any kind of negative feelings that there's this Laowai, this foreign guy who comes and lectures them about how they should behave?
You see, I'm quite exotic in a sense. They are just, I can say, it's not like when I was in Hungary before, so many arrivals. Some people say, well, it's so hopeless to do that, so that I rarely encounter much feeling negative. People appreciate and they test you first, your level of Chinese is always the first, and then what you actually know. And then for me, it's always a common process of reciprocity. See, and also, of course, I share, there's a lot of dirty stuff in Switzerland, so no problem to share that with much conviction, see. So they see, I don't just pinpoint, but the main reason where I don't just enjoy life in Europe is the action is now in China. And it's really an issue if the Chinese become a driver. And strange enough, it's really my feeling, we say rightly, the prophet is not recognized in his home country. It certainly is the case in my case. I have much more resonance in China than I would if I have my nice place in Switzerland.
Any more questions? Yeah?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Zoltán Ruzsbacki. My question is China ready to take a bigger role in the world?
Absolutely, yes. They are eager to take the role in the world, and some may feel even upset how aggressively they want to have this new role. But I think we have to understand, I always say it's not necessarily a very nice fact, but we have to understand if you're just such a numerous country, and so now with this kind of development that they, I think, would really, and you see that also with this Belt and Road initiative, is clear an indicator that this idea, that of low-key behavior is now gone. They really want to take the world stage. But therefore, that's for me the background under which conditions this may become something positive. If they really, I think, share their values, and that's really, I want also to share, sometimes also the media is so focused only on negative things. I really have the experience, Chinese extremely ethical. You cannot be more ethical and more caring. And these positive kind of examples are often overlooked.
Thank you. Any more? So I would like to thank again Professor Stephan Rothlin for this very inspiring lecture tonight. Tomorrow he will have Ladányi Lectures II, I think in the same room, right? At the same time, 6 o'clock p.m. about the social teaching of the Catholic Church in China. Very interesting to me.
And tomorrow there will be a translation also. If you would like to invite anybody who cannot understand English properly, will understand the lecture. Yeah.
May I also just, I really want to thank very much. Of course, it was a shortcut, and if you want to have an insight into the MOOCs on different key issues of business ethics, you can just click my website, Rothlin, ROTH.org, where you can see these main 5 MOOCs. So we have 20 minutes videos, give you an insight, including a trailer on James Bond, so just to wake people up. Yeah.
So this is the place of to advertise things what are important to the topic. Is there anybody who would like to share something? Or,
Okay, then thank you, Professor, again, and thank you all for coming, and see you tomorrow night.